Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte.
Later in the show, one of the oldest Latina heritage parades in the country happens right here in Springfield.
Shirley Rodriguez, one of the organizers of the Springfield Puerto Rican Parade, will be here in studio along with NEPM reporter Elizabeth Roman, who's covering the kickoff event and the parade itself.
There's a kickoff party happening on Thursday that Monty alluded to, to get us all ready to celebrate. And first, coffee. Specifically, Dean's Beans Coffee Roaster in Orange, Mass. Technically the 978, not the 413, but it's Franklin County, so it still counts.
Dean Sycon founded Dean's Beans Organic Coffee in 1993 after working as an environmental and indigenous rights lawyer. He's dedicated the last 30 years to proving that a for-profit business could create meaningful change through ethical business practices rooted in respect for the earth, the farmer, the consumer, and the co-workers.
And even though yesterday was his last official day as head of the company, he left by example, selling the company to his co-workers who have now formed a worker-owned co-op.
We're joined by Dean Sycon, formerly of Dean's Beans, and Beth Spong, one of the new owners of Dean's Beans. First question, I guess, Dean, is...
How's retirement?
Well, I was going to say, are we going to continue to call it Dean's Beans?
That's up to the workers. I mean, I think it would make a lot of sense since everybody knows it as that. But
it wasn't written into the contract like Ben & Jerry's was going to be Ben & Jerry's forever or anything like that?
No, I'm not that kind of guy. Nope, it's their company now, and they'll do what they will. I just think that who we are and the mission we've created really speaks for itself. So why rock the boat?
Yeah. Yes, the answer is yes. It's going to continue to be called Dean's Beans Organic Coffee. That's a definite yes.
But could there be maybe a blend that's called the beans formerly known as Dean's?
Or Beth's Beans or something like that?
I like that.
No.
But you do specialize blends, like you do personalized blends.
We do. My mom could get one that says Beth Beans, but that's it.
So, Beth, you're now one of the new worker owners, right?
I am. Yes, I am. And I am the CEO of the company.
Wow, that is amazing. How many other of you
that
are
didn't
there?
take long, did it?
It's not a hostile takeover if you give it away.
Yeah,
That's true. That's true. Thank you. I knew that.
How many other worker owners are there? And is that the structure? Is it a worker owner co-op like that?
It is a worker-owned cooperative, yes. And there are 16 of us, and I am one. And so, the whole team is very excited. And we've been working for the last 15 months, actually, with a cooperative development institute, helping us learn what we need to know to make this transition and have the company continue to do the great work that Dean has been doing for the last 30 years. So it's quite a legacy to carry forward.
And there are a lot of worker-owned co-ops in Western Massachusetts, probably more so than in other parts of the country. So you've got these other resources. I know there's the Valley Alliance of Worker Co-ops that is from this area.
That's right.
Did you work with them at all in the guidance of this transition?
We will probably work with the Alliance and become part of the Alliance now that we are a worker-owned cooperative. We've been working with the Cooperative Development Institute out of and a consultant out of Maine. They're based, I think, in Western Mass. And then we, just a group of about 6 of us, went to the Vermont Employee-Owned Centers Conference, and we met all kinds of people from cooperatives, employee-owned cooperatives, and learned a tremendous amount. So we're definitely committed to the learning of how to make the business continue running as smoothly and as well as it has been.
I think they are based in Western Mass because I'm pretty sure
They're in
that's
Northampton.
the same organization that helped Franklin County Corrections when they were working on building co-ops in that system too.
Cool.
That eventually became the compost cooperative that
was on the show.
a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we're hearing a little bit about the future of Dean's Beans, but let's go back in time, the history of Dean's Beans. Dean, you were, even before you were an environmental and indigenous lawyer, is it true that you were a corporate lawyer? You were, working for the big guys?
Well, yes, but there is a story.
Okay, so I figured there was. No. The Dean is the author of 2 books, one of which has just come out, a historical fiction called Finding Home. We'll talk a little bit about that later, as well as Java Trekker. Dean's filled with stories, but tell.
Well, this one has to do with a young guy who wanted to participate in social change. When I was in high school, that's when the Vietnam War was raging, and I was so excited by the fact that lawyers were helping organize people. William Kunstler, et cetera, were helping organize people to fight against this monstrous thing. And so I thought, that's what I'll be. I'll be a lawyer because that's a good avenue. Then I went to law school, and I started doing indigenous rights work, and I started doing environmental work in law school. And when I graduated, I thought, okay, I can get out there in the trenches because a lot of my friends were doing that. But I realized I didn't have any skill. I had all the heart and soul, but no skill. So I thought, if I'm going to fight multinationals and large banks and governments, where am I going to get that kind of experience? Working for the large banks and blah, 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 blah. So I took a job. I was offered a job, which was interesting in and of itself, with a Wall Street law firm. And I worked there. I said, I'm going to work there for 2.5 years, because if you work there for over 3 years, you get sucked in. If you work there for much less than 3 years, you didn't get the training. So I took the job, and basically on my 3rd anniversary, I walked into my senior partner's office, Kimberwood Lovejoy, who's now senior judge in the Southern District in New York, wonderful, wonderful person, great mentor. And I said, I'm going to be leaving. And she said, well, we knew that. It was only a matter of time, but you've done good work here and hope you've learned a lot. It's like, yes, thank you very much. The next day, I started a one-person law firm, and I did that for about a year and starved. So then I said, I better do something else. So I got a fellowship at Woods Hole Oceanographic for 2 years, looking at the impact of offshore oil and gas on indigenous fishing around the world. So that kind of brought me back in. I also worked on the Titanic while I was there. That's another story. Forget it. That's another episode. Okay.
Nobody's been talking about the Titanic.
I know. I thought I'd bring it up
For
just to
no
remind
reason
people.
whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. So I did get that experience, and it was awesome. So that when I started my own firm and then started working with other people and in indigenous groups, I had the skill to actually do something and fight. But I also realized after a couple of years that all I was doing was putting out brush fires. I wasn't really attacking the real problems behind why indigenous peoples were suffering so much in the United States, why the environment was in such disarray. And so I thought, I've got to start trying to find where I can have a more direct impact. So Dean's Beans was basically my way of interacting directly with a place where globalization was having a terrible impact on coffee villages. And at the time I started, there were no international aid groups. There were no progressive roasters. There was nobody doing work in the villages. And nobody in the coffee industry was a lawyer and an activist. They were just roasting coffee and selling it in small town businesses, So I came at it from a very different place. And I think in the 30 years we've been doing Dean's Beans, we've really modeled for the coffee industry and other industries, how you interact with your source, how you interact, especially primary sources in the developing world or the global south.
So with your coffee, you go to places and check out the trees and talk to the people and see and plant more trees while you're there. Have you seen things changing over the course of your tenure at Dean's Beans with these crops and with the trees due to climate change already?
There's 2 major changes I've seen at Dean's Beans. One, just because you mentioned it, is the planting of trees. We have about 400,000 hardwood trees in Peru. We're in 4 other countries with tree planting programs with the farmers. The farmers choose the varietal. The farmers create nurseries. The farmers plant the trees. We don't bring in Trees for the Future or any of these other large organizations that take most of your money and suck it up in admin for us well-off people up here. So we don't do that. So, but the other side of that and the other work we do with farmers, the development projects that we do are not really about the deliverables, how many schools, how many wells, how many healthcare programs. It's really about changing people's attitudes about themselves, because social change isn't about deliverables. It's about people changing. Until people change their attitude and get a sense of agency instead of feeling like passive victims, until they can be active agents in their own change, nothing's going to change. So that's what we're really all about. And we've been very successful on a small scale, but we've modeled to a lot of people. And, you never know. How many people's hearts and minds do you have to participate in facilitating change before they then create their own things? And we can point to tons of stories like that. We don't see it up here, but that's what's happening all over the global south, in part because of the work we do. So 30 years on, we're still doing it. It's the most important thing, what we do, and I don't think that's going to change.
And I can corroborate that. So I've been with the company about almost a year and a half, and I've been
This
to.
is the new CEO of Dean's Beans, Beth Song,
Yes.
that we're speaking to right now.
And the first thing I did, the very first week, I went to a Specialty Coffee Association conference, which happened to be in Boston. Super convenient. There are thousands of people there who from around the world in the coffee business. And I had my little name tag in my lanyard, Beth Spong, Dean's Beans Organic Coffee. And I'm walking around. I went to the research conference part of it first and then the big expo. And I would say 80% of the people I met and just introduced myself to said, "Oh, Dean's Beans. I know Dean's Beans. Dean's done more for the coffee farmers than anybody else in the industry. Dean's a legend." And so it was huge for me to see how the coffee industry respects Dean and the company and the work that we've been doing with farmers at source. And the same thing happened again this year in Portland, Oregon. I was sitting next to this guy who owns a coffee company in Vancouver, about to listen to a speaker, and I introduced myself, and I said, "We're a 30-year-old organic fair trade coffee company." He said, "I know." I'm like, how would I know that you know that when you're from Vancouver? And so that happens over and over again in the coffee industry.
But what else did he say? What kind of got him motivated in coffee?
Oh, so there was another guy in one of the sessions. We were talking about the impact of climate change on coffee farming around the world, and I had some comments to make, so I said who I was and then made my comments. And the next gentleman who spoke said, "Java Trekker is the only reason I'm in coffee. I read Dean's Beans' book and it changed my life." And he's from Minneapolis. And he's been in
Imagine.
coffee for 20 years because he read Java Trekker and he saw a vision that really resonated for him about what's possible to do in service of humanity and the environment through a for-profit business. And so that was amazing.
We're speaking with the new CEO of Dean's Beans, Beth Spong, who's newly minted as of yesterday. Is that when you officially became CEO?
Correctamundo.
And the longtime CEO and founder of Dean's Beans, Dean Sycon, who retired yesterday.
He's finally free.
Yeah.
I was deminted yesterday.
We're going to talk a little bit about some of those exciting stories in your book, more of your Coffee Land adventures, more of your social entrepreneurial involvement in which places in the world. But I also want to talk a little bit about your stint as a pirate, as well as
It's an ongoing gig.
as well as what the future holds in store for Dean's Beans. Sans Dean, you're listening to the Fabulous 413 on NEPM.
I wanna hold it out there. It's just a
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. We are here with Dean Sycon and Beth Spong of Dean's Beans. Full disclosure, Dean's Beans is an underwriter of New England Public Media. Okay, that's over with. Now we can ask you the fun questions.
Dean, what's your favorite type of coffee that you roast or had roasted until yesterday when Beth Spong became the new CEO of the new worker-owned co-op that you sold to your employees?
Well, I'll tell you my favorite coffee that I'm going to have to start buying now.
You don't get free coffee for a lifetime
I
after
forgot
you
to
found
put
a
it in the
coffee
contract. Can you believe it? I forgot.
It'd be like giving Willy Wonka no candy.
No chocolate.
No chocolate.
I think we can arrange that
Yeah,
for
we
you,
have,
Dean.
we have to work on that.
You just show up in an alley and someone passes you a bag real quiet like.
Look at me. It's me on the bag.
Not anymore. They got rid of me on the bag, too. That was 2 years ago in preparation for this.
Oh, wow.
Now it's two hands.
Okay, so how long has this been in the works of preparing to turn it over to the workers?
Okay, so I've had a 5-year plan for the last 15 years. You know, I've been thinking for a long time that there's going to come a time when it's time to pass the torch. I have two incredible daughters, neither of whom has any interest whatsoever. So there goes Succession. There goes the dynasty, right? No TV series out of our family. But then, and then I thought, well, how can I ensure that the mission stays the way it is? So I looked at different legal forms, and one of them was a voting trust, and I thought that'd be pretty cool. And incidentally, That's what Patagonia just instituted, a voting trust. They didn't give away their shares. They didn't give away their money. They didn't give the workers power. They created a voting trust to keep the mission intact. So I thought about a voting trust, but it was kind of complex legally, and I really don't like lawyers. I spent too much time with
Present
them.
company included.
Exactly, And so one thing led to another. We had some progressive businessmen that came in and wanted to buy Dean's Beans, but, you sniff and scratch them, and at the end of the day, all they were interested in was the money. Oh, yeah, the farmers. Oh, yeah, the employees, but the money, and we can do more products. So I thought, this isn't working. And I thought, I'd been thinking about a worker co-op for years, but to be honest with you, we were missing a critical piece, and that was who's going to replace Dean, Right. And then all of a sudden, when Beth, who was a consultant working with us wonderfully for 3 years, when she and I were putting together like a general manager, COO position, trying to write it out, she stopped and said, I'd like this position. And I was like, you? Why? You've got such a good gig. And she said, because I believe in this company. I know everybody. I've worked here for 3 years on and off, and I'd like to do this. And I said, can't think of anybody better. So Beth came on, and then that was the missing piece. So we started thinking about co-op pretty much right off the bat.
Now, Dean is a Java trekker. He loves going to these places and getting involved and being in these villages. Is this something that you, Beth, the new CEO, feel like you'll carry on?
Absolutely. It turns out I speak Spanish very well.
Better than me.
It was one of my majors in college, and I've lived in Spain a couple of times. And so that element, we spent a week in Nicaragua in early February with Brendan Walsh, our roast master and green bean buyer, and with the coffee cooperatives that we buy coffee from in Central and South America. And so it was my first time seeing the coffee farms and meeting the coffee farmers and their families and seeing what the process is at source. And that was amazing. And we also invited our cooperative partners from Guatemala, Honduras, Peru, and Colombia to join us in Nicaragua so that we could all talk together about the social projects that we work with on in their countries. And that was really amazing. So it was fun to speak Spanish the whole week, but that's one barrier in Central and South America that isn't a problem for me. But yes, it's part of how we do what we do is to actually have direct relationships with farmers in the coffee land. So Dean and I were just talking on our way down here about how the next place we're going to go is probably Sumatra and Timor. Ooh. Because we buy a lot of coffee from those countries, and the legacy continues through that work. Yep.
And it's really important to have the personal relationships. So we got to go. That means Beth got to go. That means Brendan's got to go. And he did a wonderful job because he's the roaster. He touches those beans. He roasts those beans. So he's an important part of this. So I think Beth and Brendan are going to be the team doing the in-country visits. Also, we have other relationships with the farmers, and this is really neat. So in October, when is Gabby coming up?
Yes, in October.
Share that.
So Proto-Co-op is the coffee cooperative in Nicaragua that we buy coffee from and have a 28-year relationship with them. And their business manager is coming up to study at the International Language Institute. She speaks pretty good English, but she's going to come up for the month of October. We're bringing her up, and she'll be studying at ILI and hanging out in Western Mass. And that's a benefit to us because it really builds that relationship and continues that. But it's also a great benefit for her because she does business internationally with people from around the world to have stronger English.
That's wicked cool.
Yeah. Huh?
Right?
That's attacking the system at its source, right? Mm-hmm. So there we go.
Yeah, more power and more hands of more workers. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For sure.
Now, Dean, we still didn't get to your favorite cup of coffee question yet, but let's not forget about that. I also don't want to forget about what I alluded to at the last segment.
Pirates.
Tell us about your relationship with pirates, and specifically
of the Caribbean.
Of the Caribbean, yeah.
You mean pirates who carry beans?
Ah,
not my joke. I can't take credit. That's João Leão, a wonderful Portuguese jokester.
And that is Dean of Dean's Beans, who is a pirate of the
That's a
Carib.
level to which your jokes aspire.
Yes, that's true. That is true.
No kidding, huh?
So tell us about your relationship with pirates.
So I've been doing pirates for a long, long time. I was on the Today Show when I was at Woods Hole Oceanographic because I did a little side project on international piracy, modern piracy. So we pulled together 24 countries and had this 4-day conference on the problems of modern piracy.
Did you dress up like a Halloween style-esque pirate for that conference?
No,
okay.
I didn't.
Just
I missed
checking.
my chance. I missed my chance. So then I got a call from the Today Show, and they said, well, we want to have a segment on piracy. We'd like you to come down to Savannah, Georgia on the SS Norway, and we'll have this thing. So they brought on a historian to talk about historical piracy, and then they brought me on to talk about modern piracy out at sea. It was so cool. Bryant Gumbel, you may remember him.
yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay, Bryant Gumbel interviewed me, and that's another story, but we'll leave that for another time. And it was great. So that got me rolling in the pirate world. And then it just keeps coming up every now and then. And then I ultimately got that small but important part in Pirates of the Caribbean 3, where I threw up behind Johnny Depp. It was the crescendo of the movie. You know, it's like
definitely.
Act 3 and 4.
I think there are many people who want to follow that lead.
And not
as
at
of
all
late.
foretelling.
Yeah.
So there it was. Yeah, it made a splash, so to speak. And that's it. But
Dean's
you know, the
70th birthday in January was a pirate-themed party. Yes.
Yeah, I was surprised.
We
I
were
walked in and
we
there
were
were
dressed up.
70 people in there dressed as pirates.
That's amazing.
I thought
That's
I was in the wrong room.
No,
And the
you
employee
didn't.
group sang a sea shanty to him
Amazing.
Only
in his
one?
honor.
Your pirates are slacking.
But they were too busy raiding the food and pillaging the bar.
That's Dean Sycon, formerly of Dean's Beans, who has now transitioned his company to a cooperative-owned business, and Beth Spong, who is the new CEO of Dean's Beans. Dean, the last time I had you on my other airwaves, I was on with you and your wife, who had left, not only doing stuff in the coffee world, but doing stuff for humanitarian efforts in other regards. You were on the border of Ukraine in Poland with World Central Kitchen, formed by Chef Jose Andres, feeding the people who were having to flee Ukraine into Poland. Talk about why that's what you're doing in your free time when you're, besides when you're going to the coffee lands and trying to develop social entrepreneurship and dig wells and things like that.
You know, to be frank, it's really hard for me to resist something that calls to me. And so I think I got a lot of bandwidth to do different things. So yes, Annette and I started working on the border of Poland and Ukraine. We went over there to be with the Chef Andre's World Central Kitchen, but when we got there, we realized there's plenty of people chopping up tomatoes, but we have different skill sets. So we said, what are the issues that we can help with that maybe a lot of people here don't have the skill set for? And what it turned out was people needed housing. And they were pouring into Poland, but there really wasn't that much set up for housing. And then we discovered that the Roma community, which is the most disenfranchised community in Eastern Europe forever, that the Roma community was in Poland but was being discriminated against in housing. We took it upon ourselves to get Roma housing. And so I negotiated with a bunch of hotel chains to allow Roma housing. We got senior housing at a beautiful hotel, a floor reserved for old Roma people who'd never been in a hotel. So we had to have someone go in and show them how to use the TV remote and stuff like that. It was a dream come true. So we did that. And then from there, I started getting involved actually with the coffee industry in Ukraine because we got the skill base. So we started working with 5 different coffee roasters in the city of Kharkiv, which had just been liberated from the Russians, and they were still getting bombed a lot. And so we're working with them now on rebuilding cafes because cafe roasteries are sort of the anchor of local economies. So if the cafes can get up and running, not only can they serve coffee and pastries and hire bakers and things like that, but they can hire staff, and it generates a local economy and helps bring things back. So that's what we're doing now. And Dean's Beans has been involved in that, but I'm kind of taking it on. I have to ask Beth if they're willing to stay financially involved or if they're going to keep coming out of my pocket.
Beth?
And of course, it's not just us sending coffee to Ukraine to the roaster so that they can do what they do. It's also Dean arranging to send clothing and boots and coordinate housing so that the long arms of the impact in Ukraine are extraordinary. And it turns out there are multiple ways that we as a company and Dean and his family have been making a difference.
Yeah, one other thing we do is that we've been working with the service providers, meaning the people that go out and hook up the electric, hook up the gas, hook up the water after the bombings. Talk about unsung heroes. And their requests were for work boots. So we got them from Sweden, the best work boots in the world, and we got them down there. They wanted power washers to wash off their vehicles because of the thick mud so that their vehicles could keep working, and all sorts of stuff, all the while still funding the flow of refugees, which still continues from eastern Ukraine out. So it's been, and also prosthetic leg for a barista who lost both his legs fighting. So it's like, it never ends, right? But it has to be addressed. Mm-hmm. Oh, P.S. I'm still doing voting rights work in Georgia. Okay. I will not stop doing that.
Every federal election, he goes down to last November, it was Coffee County, Georgia, to be an election
You always
observer.
have to be on theme.
It wasn't my that's what the Democratic Party, I guess they looked at my resume and they said, we should send him to Coffee County. That makes sense. Yeah, right.
That is Dean of Dean's Beans, formerly of Dean's Beans, and Beth Spong, the new CEO of Dean's Beans.
Quite a fan of the new Nitro can.
Yes, talk to us, Beth,
Thank
about
you.
some of the new endeavors that you'll be bringing and the other worker owners will be bringing.
He doesn't believe in cold coffee, but I do.
I'll drink it. I don't love it.
I wish
Alrighty.
you out there on the radio
I
could
was
see
just
his
on the
face.
phone earlier with Representative Susanna Whips, and she said she only drinks cold coffee now. She makes it every morning. She drinks it all year round, and she just can't do the big chains anymore. She's like, it's not as good. So anyway, cold
We
coffee.
are, by the way, the breaker of chains. That's what we're known as in the industry.
I mean, between the tree planting, the bird protection, the water well building, the well building, the buying of work boots for service workers. I mean, it seems a part and parcel of the whole thing.
Well, what I think really speaks to a lot of people is that buying Dean's Beans coffee is a way they can purchase with purpose. So I care about climate change. I care about maternal health. I care about water in the coffee lands. I care about those impacts. I care about humanity. And this is a company that is using its resources to put its money where its mouth is. And that's where I want my money to be. And it's really good coffee. So.
Which brings us full circle, Dean Sycon. Now that you no longer are with Dean's Beans, if you were to have to go purchase the coffee from the company you formerly owned, what would be the first blend that you would make sure to get?
Well, first I have to clarify your mistaken impression. I am not leaving Dean's Beans. I don't own Dean's Beans any longer. I have been asked to be on the board of directors.
Nice. Okay.
For 3 years.
For 3 years. 3 years, really? 3 years. as what's called a benefit director, because we're a B Corp.
Right.
And a B Corp has to have an outside director that oversees the benefit aspect. So I'm going to be the benefit director, which allows me to stay in touch with the work with the farmers and everything.
And since you
but leave
created
people
the
alone.
benefits, you can guide us in continuing the
But
benefits.
not bother everybody in the roastery like, what are you doing there? Why don't you clean that up? No, I'm not there. That's Beth. That's Beth. So that's what I'm doing. But having said that, about that coffee, do you know the very first blend I ever made was Mocha Sumatra? We took Sumatran, which I think is the boldest, most beautiful coffee out there, and we blended it with Nicaraguan, which is kind of like this cocoa-y, dry, really nice coffee, and we put them together. So it wasn't Mocha Java, which is Indonesian and Ethiopian, basically. It's our version of it, Mocha Sumatra. It's the first blend I ever made. I still drink it every morning. I love it. I can't stop. And even when it gets cool in the cup, now it tastes like cold hot chocolate. It's wonderful.
I'm a fan of Ahab's Revenge.
I've always been a fan of that.
Ooh, she likes it dark and strong.
Me too. Beth Spong, the new CEO of Dean's Beans Coffee, which is now a worker-owned co-op as of yesterday, and Dean Sycon, the newly retired CEO and board member of Dean's Beans, at least for the next 3 years. You've been honored by the United Nations for the humanitarian work you've done across the globe. I've long been a fan of you as a human being and showing what social entrepreneurship can look like. My childhood mantra after I saw Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction, where he once said, "I want my goal in life to roam the earth and get in adventures like Kane from Kung Fu." You have done that exact thing with a career and with social justice in mind this entire time. So I know you're still involved, but best of luck in the next chapter of your life, Dean Sycon.
And thanks for bringing real cool bands to the Green River Festival.
Yeah.
We benefit every year.
And there was a big farewell ceremony to Dean at the Green River Festival over the past weekend.
Wonderful.
Indeed.
Thanks so much, folks. It's been a
problem.
pleasure to be here.
And we're so happy to be carrying on Dean Sycon's legacy with the future of Dean's Beans Organic Coffee as a worker-owned cooperative right here in Western Mass.
Right on. Coming up, making strides with culture as one of the oldest Puerto Rican parades in the country gets ready for its festivities.
We'll be joined by Parade Administrator Shirley Rodriguez and NEPM's Elizabeth Roman, who'll be covering the parade, who's been covering the parade for 20 years as we delve into the history and legacy of the Springfield Puerto Rican Parade.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, helping customers make the switch to solar for savings, energy security, and tax incentives. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. The Springfield Puerto Rican Parade has been celebrated for 33 years. The 2023 theme, Nunca Olvides Tus Raíces, translates into Never Forget Your Roots. The culture of Puerto Rico is a combination of Taíno, Spanish, and African cultures.
The parade is an annual celebration of cultural pride, arts, and education that honors the Puerto Rican people on both the island and on the continent. The parade spans just over 2 miles through the city center, starting from the North End neighborhood and ending in downtown.
The parade's committee will be announcing ambassador honorees in several categories, including community organizations, sports, culture, LGBTQIA+, and more at their kickoff party, which happens this Thursday.
And here to speak more on the festival and its importance here in the 413 are Parade Administrator Shirley Rodriguez and NEPM reporter Elizabeth Roman. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. I must say that you said that the theme of the parade, I mean, you pronounced it so perfectly.
Thank you. I speak Spanish very poorly. I understand Spanish a little bit better. My wife is a Spanish professor, so I really have no good excuse. But I do my best when I can. Why is that the theme, Shirley Rodriguez? Nunca olvides tus raíces. Never forget your roots.
Yes. So this year we decided to reach out to the community and get them involved, get them excited of this year's parade. So once we did, we received a lot of great responses from, the community. And it was really tough to decide on one. But we decided on Nunca Olvides Tus Raíces because it spoke to many people on the board. And when we reached out to the person who submitted that theme, she is actually a co-owner to Mi Esquina Boricua here on Main Street, which is a Puerto Rican store that has a lot of artisan. Is that how you say it in English? And a lot of cool knickknacks from Puerto Rico. And she stressed the importance of, when people come and visit her store, many of the young adults are always asking, things about Puerto Rico. And she feels that, she loves to share that information, things about the island and just express, share the culture and this gastronomy of Puerto Rico.
Best way to connect with any culture is through its food. I stand by it.
Maybe tied with music, but yeah, they're very close. So
the festival is in its Jesus year. It's 33 this year. What give us a brief history of. You're laughing at me, but
I am quietly. That's just such a weird way to phrase it, but sure, yes.
give us a brief rundown of the history of the festival in Springfield.
As you've been covering it, Elizabeth Roman from NEPM.
Yeah, I've been covering it since I was a young intern at what was then the Union News. It's now the Republican newspaper. So over 20 years I've been going to this parade. It goes right past the newspaper and past the NEPM offices, our former offices. So it actually started with a flag raising in the late 80s, I believe in 1989. So a couple of local Latinos who had moved here and were really trying to make an impact for the Puerto Rican community. A lot of Puerto Ricans arrived here in the 40s and 50s to work on the tobacco farms. And they were really trying to make a name for themselves. And one of the things they did was, start this petition to get a flag raising going. It worked out for them. And then the following year, they were like, we should turn this into a parade. And it's been going ever since.
Why is it in September and not on Puerto Rico Day, which just passed a couple weeks ago?
You want to go to that, or I can talk about it a little bit. It's been back and forth. So
it?
So it was in the summer. It started with the parade and then a festival. The flag raising was in November because that's Puerto Rican Heritage Month. So there's a lot of opportunities for where you could do it. You could do it in the summer because that is festival season. You could do it in November, but then it's too cold. So they opted for September a couple of years ago because they really wanted the schools involved. And in order for them to participate in the marching, you want kids to be back in school, and they start back in school end of August, beginning of September. So it worked out really well. The weather's generally pretty good. And it's worked out great. They have tons of school contingencies that participate. I'm assuming this year there's some coming as well, Shirley?
Definitely, yeah. And if you know anything about our Puerto Rican culture, we like to celebrate all year through. So it's just another excuse to continue celebrating. So.
I mean, that's the best way to go about things, right? What are we celebrating this month? Where's the party?
Yeah.
Bring it.
There's always a party.
Well, speaking of, the parade is in September, and we'll talk about it again as it gets a little bit closer. But what's happening this week and why we're having you on right now is because there's a kickoff to all of these festivities happening on Thursday. Shirley Rodriguez, who's the parade administrator, tell us a little bit about what to expect Thursday at White Lion right here in downtown Springfield.
Yeah, so basically we try to have a kickoff celebration, just get everyone excited about the parade, and that's when we do our ambassador honoree reveal. And so we have a few honorees representing the categories of civil service, madrina, padrino, cultural, youth, sports, LGBTQIA+, community organization, and we have another category that's going to be a special announcement on Thursday that we're eager to share with the public, and this is just our way to honor those ambassadors and just have a little beer, wine, appetizers, share in this event with the public and get their spirits going and excited for the parade.
And those ambassadors will be participating in the parade itself.
Yes,
correct?
yes, they do march.
How are? You know what? I'm going to figure out what this question is, and then you come back to me.
Sounds good. So you're not revealing any of the honorees yet?
No.
But Elizabeth Roman from NEPM will be there covering it.
I will.
You're going to be missing out on the ice cream social that
I
Khalees and I are going to be
know.
covering because we want to institute some sort of ice cream tasting feature with you, Elizabeth Roman.
I'm ready.
Because-
I mean, Puerto Rican roots and ice cream. That's really my two passions. So I had to choose, and I chose the parade.
You are Puerto Rican yourself, and that is
Yes.
that you are covering this as part of the community as well. What are some of the things that you remember specifically over the course of different years throughout covering this parade?
I mean, I think there's so many things that are the same, and that's really what I love about it, right?
Yeah.
So you come back to the same traditions of seeing all of these people come together. Some of the parade founders are still alive and well. So Gumercindo Gomez, who is the executive director of the Bilingual Veterans Outreach Center, Maria Perez, who's now a city councilor, her husband Freddy Moreno, who passed away, was a big part of it. Heriberto Flores, who runs the New England Farm Workers Council. So all of them come together. I don't get to see them too much throughout the year. So when they're all there, it's nice to see them walking down and just join the parade route and start talking to them and interviewing them. This year I'll have radio equipment. Last year, before I was with a notebook. But I love being able to see everybody come out, and it brings a lot of people together. I mean, yes, it is, of course, it's Puerto Rican culture, so we're celebrating that. But I think more importantly, it's an opportunity to see all of the Latino culture racers that have now come into the north end of Springfield and Springfield as whole in Western Massachusetts. So I think the parade has tried to incorporate some of that, and then people who are outside of the culture so that they can experience the music and the fun too. So it's really fun from the perspective of being able to see it from the outside, but also being very proud as a Puerto Rican person growing up in the north end to see it still thriving.
How did yourself, not to harp on pandemic things, but clearly in the pandemic years, we weren't able to meet and do anything with this celebration. How has the celebration shifted from when we couldn't be together to now when we finally are again? Because this is only the second one since the pandemic happened, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, and I wasn't a part of that, so you can speak on that.
So it went virtual. The parade committee at that time, they made a really serious decision. We actually reported on it extensively beforehand because they were being really thoughtful about, what the Holyoke Parade was doing for St. Patrick's, and they wanted to be sure to do something that wasn't going to hurt anyone. And the Latino community at that time, there was a high incidence of COVID happening, so they decided to shut it down. But they opted for like a video version. So that day they still celebrated. They put together, some music and some thoughts and recollections from people in the community, and they aired it on television and online, and they did that for 2 years. They opted to stay an additional year off campus or off the streets, just for safety's sake, and they were happy with that decision. I've interviewed many of them, and they knew it was sad, and it was they loved being together, but it was the right thing to do for the community at that time to keep everyone healthy and safe.
So it seems like when you finally were able to come back together, it was like even bigger and more meaningful.
Oh, for sure. I would say meaningful for everyone who came out. So last year was the first year back in person, and I mean the streets were just full, and it was everybody. Everybody wanted to party. It doesn't matter if you're a Puerto Rican or not. You just wanted to be out. You wanted to hear good music, and you wanted to smell the good food of all the vendors, and so it was very fun to cover that parade, I have to say. And
it was over 5,000 marchers.
Okay, so you were involved in last year's
yes,
parade,
I was,
just not
yeah.
the pandemic. So talk about last year and what you guys.
I mean, it
got
was
done
exciting, and we just hope to replicate that this year. We have an exciting lineup of artists, and we'll mention that further down the road. We'll share it on our social media page. For right now, we want to keep it secret in the download. But we're hoping to do a little change up as well during the parade, and it's just going to be exciting. So you'll have to go in order to see what we have.
33 years in, and they still have surprises for you.
Let's hope. Yeah, that sounds exciting. Well, we'll try to see if we can solicit any more of these surprises out of the festival administrator, but we won't push too hard. Shirley Rodriguez, and talk more about the kickoff festivities that are happening this Thursday at White Lion in downtown Springfield, and more with NEPM's own Elizabeth Roman, who's been covering this festival and going to it for the last 20 years, the Springfield Puerto Rican Parade.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on NEPM. Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. We're delving further into the history and legacy of the Springfield Puerto Rican Parade with Shirley Rodriguez, one of the parade administrators, and NEPM's own Elizabeth Roman.
What does a parade administrator do, Shirley? Do you have to do you come up with the route?
No, thankfully, it's been a set schedule since, for fairly good number of years.
Many years. It's always been down Main Street.
Yeah, and it's worked very well with, for us. It's, just right straight down, like she says, down Main Street. So, the logistical piece is kind of all set, but I do more of the administrative, the collecting payments, posting on social media, getting our website ready, sending out e-newsletters, trying to engage, going to different meetings, and just trying to engage the community as much as possible.
Why did you want to be a part of making the parade happen?
Oh dear, so wow, that's a very good question. I think I'm going to mimic Elizabeth's answer that she mentioned earlier. It's just I'm so proud of my roots. I was born and raised in Florida, but my mom moved to Florida when she was 7 months pregnant. So I'm like, Mom, why couldn't you have waited just a few more months so I could have been born in Puerto Rico like my siblings. But I've it's just something that I guess lives in my bones and my blood. And I'm just so proud, and I like to share that with my two sons, who I also get them involved. They're voluntold to the parade, but they enjoy it. They have enjoyed it. So it's important to share that culture down, with my family.
That's wonderful. Also, that's a great word everybody should be using.
Get ready, my children. You too will be voluntold. They've already done a lot of that at the Shea and Turner's. That's now I'm going to use that word. I'm going to steal that from you, Shirley Rodriguez, parade administrator from the Springfield Puerto Rican Parade. A lot of times when people are talking in the 413 in Western Mass about Puerto Rico, their mind immediately goes to Holyoke. But what makes the Puerto Rican community in the north end of Springfield unique? Elizabeth Roman from NEPM, who is part of that community, but who's also been covering that community for decades now, either for the Springfield Republican, the Union, or right here at NEPM.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say there's anything unique in the sense of we're all Puerto Ricans, whether you were born on the island or whether you were born and raised here like both of us were, because I also was born in Springfield in the North End, actually. So I've been here my entire life. And I think I would say what makes us special to me, because I'm from here, obviously, is the fact that we're really entrenched here, right? So, like I mentioned before, you have families that were arriving here in the late 40s and 50s looking just for a better life. And while we're not technically immigrants because we do have, U.S. citizenship, it's still an immigrant experience, right? You don't know the language. You don't know many people. There weren't many people in politics at that time, actually, that were Latino. So when they came here, they kind of like bonded together, and the North End became the place that became like a little Puerto Rico, just like Holyoke has, the South End of Holyoke, which is really populated with a lot of Puerto Rican culture. Same thing in the North End in Springfield. You've got places you can eat. You can go an entire day without having to speak English there and get everything that you need. So I think it's just a matter of community and embracing other Latino groups that are now coming, but always holding true to the fact that, the Puerto Rican community really came forward. We're the first ones to get into politics in the city, in school committee and city council. We have a Puerto Rican man running for mayor now. We've got city councilors that are Puerto Rican and school committee members. So it's been a long time coming, and I think that's what's important and that's what's special about it, just the history of seeing how we started and where we're going.
You both have been going to the parade for years. What's something that you're not seeing at the parade that you would really love to get on the streets and bring to the greater Springfield population?
Or that you will be bringing.
Or that
Shirley
you will
Rodriguez
be
as the parade administrator.
I feel like Will is giving away some of those secrets that she wanted to keep.
No secrets to give away.
Yeah.
I would like to see larger artists.
Yeah, of course. Maybe Bad Bunny will come.
I know. I played Bad Bunny as the bumper music that we just did.
Mark Anthony and Bad Bunny.
We are asking Bad Bunny to come. I personally am asking as well.
No, I mean, for me, it's food. I would love to see more food. We do have. I feel like music has really has developed over the years. We have Tito Puente's son, who's come many times to perform, and Bomba de Aquí does a lot of like folkloric music. So just there's a lot of music, but I would love to see some more Puerto Rican frituras just on the side of the road, or you could grab them. They do have events like at the end in the North End. Sometimes they do in Brightwood neighborhood, like a pig roast and all that. But if you had it right on the street and you could get it, I think that would be cool. So more food, always. The answer is always more food.
I mean, I can't disagree with that answer at all.
If you've listened to this show at all, I mean, we were just talking about how we're going to try to drag Elizabeth Roman to taste ice cream with us. Tasting things is a big part of it.
Not that difficult to drag me.
Whenever I go to Puerto Rico, I always am like trying to eat as much mofongo as I can eat before I feel like I'm going to be sick. Plate. Okay, good. That's what I'm going to ask. Like, is there something that when the parade happens, a food that each of you like, I got to make sure to go to this place to get this thing? Shirley Rodriguez, parade administrator for the Springfield Puerto Rican Parade.
So I'd say for me, that's like a weekly. That's like a weekly aim that I try to do. It's like I roped in our previous chair, Victoria Rodriguez, no relations. We're going to eat. We're meeting, discuss parade, detail, parade logistics and whatnot on Friday. And I'm like, why don't we go to El Rincón in Holyoke?
Yeah.
And she's like, yes, I'm on board.
Yeah, their food is so good. I'm a diehard Puerto Rican bakery pan de agua fan. So I love Old San Juan Bakery too. I love both of them. They have different things I like. Old San Juan, the pastries, the donuts they're sugar donuts. But for like the classic, if you want a really good sandwich con pan de agua, Puerto Rico Bakery. It's on Main, and I don't know, the
Main.
corner of maybe
Yeah, because
I don't know what the other
second
Waverly.
one,
That's
the
what it
second
is.
one is around the corner
Yeah,
from my
yeah.
house, and I have to not get the pastries with guava in them because I eat too many.
And now I'm hungry. Quickly
And
before we run
alcohol,
out of
yes.
time, Shirley Rodriguez.
Can I just say that my 18-year-old tried ganepas yesterday for the first time,
good.
and he loved them.
Wow, that's great. See, that's what it's all about.
Yes.
Not just food, but more. But food too. White Lion is a kickoff celebration of the Puerto Rican parade this Thursday. And then the parade itself will be in September. Shirley Rodriguez, who is the parade administrator, and NEPM's own Elizabeth Roman. Thank you both so much.
Gracias.
De nada.
Muy
Claro.
bien.
Tomorrow on the Fabulous 413, do we feel bad or feel badly?
Hopefully neither, but we'll ask the word nerd Emily Brewster from Merriam-Webster in Springfield, which is more correct.
We'll learn about the local kids' music series at the Parlor Room in Northampton with Mr. Nick and Mr. Liam.
And the local bear scene with NEPM's Nancy Cohen.
Literal bears, not the euphemism, but happy Pride Month, y'all.
Get your beard on.
Musical thanks to Spouse, Happy Valley Guitar Orchestra, Crackazat, the Mellow Men featuring Thurs, Ravencroft, Tony the Tiger, the Pirates of the Caribbean theme, Bob Dylan, Fania All-Stars, Hector Lavoe, and Bad Bunny. We'll
See you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.